So, good morning, everybody. We're streaming live to Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And this morning I'm on with Tracy Sharp. Now, Tracy is someone who I met just a couple of weeks ago, but we're actually kind of aligned on so many things and have got a similar, but actually quite a different background in terms of how we ended up doing what we're doing. So I thought it might be quite fun to do this slightly differently and just have a conversation with Tracy as to, some of the things she's been through, but also the reflections on my side as well. So we're really going to run this as a conversation. It's going to be a courageous conversation. We'll be asking each other some difficult questions. So don't be surprised if we suddenly go, But I'm just going to start with letting Tracy introduce herself because she can do it a lot better than I
can. Thank you, Sarah. I'm so happy to be here. Very happy to be invited to appear on the show. So my name is Tracy Sharp. I am originally from Scotland, but it's okay. You can actually understand what I'm saying. My background is engineering and manufacturing. My degree was a product design engineering, and I worked as a design engineer for 12 years. I worked for consultancies, and I worked also in-house as well, and I specialized in domestic appliances. In the last sort of like 5-6 years, I've been moving more into the leadership positions. So I was a design manager, associate director, design director, head of industrialization, and head of implementation and improvements at various companies. And I basically bit the bullet and left the UK in 2017. And I've been living as an expatriate for the last 5 years. I'm coming at you live from Italy this morning, and I live very, very close to Venice. In this last year, so I lost my job a year ago, and I took that opportunity to really, really think about what was really important to me. And I got to the point in my life where I was incredibly privileged and I'd had like an amazing experience living in China for 3.5 years. But like I found that I really wanted to give more, and I felt like I was just taking. And I thought, now, okay, it's time to actually give back. I felt like that was going to be more fulfilling. And so I decided that I wanted to use my skills as a manager and as a leader and combine that with coaching and mentoring. And basically, I opened my business this year. It's called Sharp Minds Coaching. Very nice name. And basically, I coach and mentor women in design and STEM. I know that world. I know what it's like. I know how difficult it is. And it's time to give them support to let them know how awesome they are, and for us to help basically try and get a better balance for like gender equality and diversity in design and STEM, because we're so horribly outnumbered. So I wanted to try and give back. And I know that Sarah's fighting the same fight, which is how we connected. So that's kind of where I've got to right now. Very excited to talk a little bit more.
So you can hear from Tracy that like her and I both got engineering degrees. We're both worked for more than 15 years in big tech companies in various like engineering and then like leadership positions. So we've got quite a lot of experience in these kind of spaces to really kind of understand what's going on right now. Because there seems to be, I don't know whether you feel this, Trace, there seems to be quite a shift that's happening in terms of women in tech, but also this, what actually leadership means. So why don't you just kind of start off by telling us what was important to you as a leader in tech?
So I think that what was important to me, like from being someone that had a leader, what was really important to me was trust and openness. I think that I've worked for companies where they were just so completely closed, like the CEO or the people in leadership, they were like incredibly unapproachable. And like I felt like really, really nervous to approach them and talk to them about like what was going on, or like to be able to be vulnerable with them. And I feel like what's really important now is to have like an open door policy, because I think that sometimes people forget that leaders are there to serve the people first. And I think that unfortunately, there's a lot of ego that gets in the way, and there's a lot of perception, I guess, about what a leader should be, and they should be like strong and powerful. But for me, Like, I want empathy, I want understanding, I want an open door. And I've been really lucky to have been able to work with people that they definitely were, they were they were really transparent, and they were really open to me, and I was able to sort of go to them when I really needed them. So that was what's important.
Mm. Yeah, I like that, because I'm kind of similar in terms of, I always think of leadership as kind of the skills that we need to create tomorrow, to create, more sustainable future and life on Earth, which is obviously my kind of like big driver. And I think these this old paradigm of leadership that you're talking about is not able to serve what's happened since COVID, not able to serve what's actually happening in the world around us, this kind of bigger picture that does come into work. It's not something we can leave at the door. So like you're saying, sort of empathy, trust, inclusion, being able to meet people at eye level, and kind of remove this fear and from the organization, is super important, to be able to enable people to just bring themselves, to be able to speak up, to be able to, create something. Because I always find this, you go hire good people, and then, well, how are you enabling them to just do their jobs that you've hired them to do?
Yeah, 100%. I think what I would definitely kind of add to that as well, and say like that the authenticity is really key for leaders as well, because I think that what hasn't served me in the past is basically having leaders which I had kind of put on a pedestal. So, like, I think that if they had, they were working all the time, they were just basically like not putting boundaries in place for themselves. And so, like, what I think what really could have helped me is actually having leaders as well that said, like, oh, do you know what? I'm really tired. I think I'm just going to take tonight off, or I think I'm going to take a mental health day, or something like that. Whereas, like, I was working with these kind of slightly impossibly brilliant leaders, which I know sounds like, it sounds like a bit of a double-edged sword, but I think that it put a lot of pressure on myself in terms of expectations about like how I needed to show up and how I felt I needed to show up. And so, like, I feel like if you're out there and you, as a leader, if you're vulnerable, you are more balanced, like you do show that there is possible to have like a work-life balance. I think that's also really important, to allow other people to not put themselves in this like impossible situation, which I ended up in, and it did not serve me.
Yeah, totally. So kind of being the role model, and role
Mm.
modeling what it's like to actually, oh, honestly, what I'm hearing from you is we need more healthy role models at leadership level within a lot of corporates, to actually show people, to actually guide people, to show, this can be done. And also, not just in terms of like creating healthy boundaries like you're saying, but for me it's really important that we've got a really diverse group within the leadership, because that also inspires younger people, inspires other people to actually try if they can see someone like them at leadership level. But you've kind of touched on something which is really important, is it's something I hear quite often, is like your definition of success. You're at some point you're trying to meet other people's expectations, and you get to that point and go, was this really what I wanted? So
Mm.
how did your definition of success kind of change as you went through your career?
Yeah, that is such a great question. I think it's changed even in the last 2 years. I would say, like, for me, like, because I think that I put a lot of emphasis on my career for such a long time. And for me, like, success was defined as, what's your job title? How much money in the bank? How many people are you leading? How are you being perceived? Like, how are you hitting your targets? And so it was very much kind of like work and target and outcome orientated. But in the last like couple of years, because I suffered a burnout in 2020, it's totally changed how I define success. And I think that for me, it's like sustainability is something which I would define now. I would define success. It's like happiness. It's being able to support others, and it's been able to actually kind of like have a balance in my life between doing something that I really believe in and something that could actually kind of actually serve others. So rather than being kind of me centric, it's more about a we centricness. So it's totally changed. Even in the last year as well. Like I've done a lot of work. I've done a lot of work on myself in this last year, and it's, like having positive relationships, like having positivity in general. It's totally changed how I feel about success.
Yeah. I can resonate with that. And I see that a lot in my clients as well, is you get to a certain point in your career and you either accept it that, well, because what I hear a lot, and it's something that held me in place, was like you're saying earlier, the expectations of others. Because everyone said, oh, you've got an amazing career, you work for a great company. I felt like I should feel grateful for what I had, although it was not making me happy. And like you, it took me going through burnout, hitting that barrier. At that point, my mum died, was my wake-up call to say, how do I want to show up for my kids? Most of my kids, as you know, are adopted. And it's super important to me to show up as a role model to help my daughters kind of find a balance in life. And it was really that kind of twisted it round to me to say, yes, this might be other people might be like, find what you do impressive, but if it doesn't make you happy, in fact, it's making you sick, then it was my responsibility. And that was the point I could take responsibility, I think, to make the changes that I wanted to make. Like you say, to go out and create more impact, to feel like I'm contributing more than I felt like I could do in the corporate space.
God, yeah, I can totally resonate with what you're saying as well. I think I remember there was a moment that I was in China, and I was sat on my sofa, and because it was an expatriate package, I didn't pay rent, and I had a cleaner that came and sorted out my stuff for me. Like I didn't have to really want for anything. It was just me, and I just felt so empty. I felt like really, really empty. And like I had this great position. Like it was oh, you're this high flying executive type person. And, I was jet setting everywhere. Like, I was based in China. I was able to kind of back in those days, I was actually able to travel and see these amazing places. And I was really grateful for that experience. I was traveling between like 3 or 4 different Chinese cities, like representing like the department. And I was just miserable. I was just like, I was really miserable. And I think that like having that feeling, I knew I had to get out. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And it took me a couple of years to get to this point, definitely to kind of say like, oh no, I need to give back. But for a long time, I didn't really know what to do. And I just sort of felt like I was on this trajectory where it was like, and I'm sure that so many people can resonate as well. Like I just didn't know how to get off. So it was a really difficult time. But I knew that I had to get out. And in the end, I quit a job. I quit my job without another one to go to because I needed to get out.
What was that final straw that kind of pushed you over the edge to say, right, something's got to change?
My upcoming 40th birthday. So, so I turned 40 in 2020, and I said to myself, I can't keep living. I can't keep living this way. There's more to life than work, because at that point, the expectations for the job that I was in at the time, I was working 16 hours a day, and I was doing that about 3 or 4 times a week, and it was just impossible. I couldn't date. I couldn't go out. I was single. So I was like 39 and single, and like relationships aren't everything, but it was just like I was like super lonely. I was like I couldn't work. I was so anxious. I dropped so much weight, and I just felt like there's more to life than this. So I thought, I'm not going to start my 40s doing this. So in my mind, well, there was actually 2 things. There was one was like I was turning 40, and the other one was I wanted to be in Scotland for my cousin's wedding. In the end, I missed my cousin's wedding because of COVID, and I ended up in Italy, and so I couldn't get there. But it was I turned 40 in the August, and my cousin's wedding was in the October, and I worked my way backwards, and I literally said, okay, I have to quit in May, and that's literally how I did it.
So the decision was made, and then how did it feel once you'd decided and once you'd actually taken the action? What was the feeling that you had?
Ooh. It was definitely relief. It was definitely relief. There was a lot of fear because it was COVID. It was in the middle of the pandemic. I was in China in the pandemic season time, sorry, and I wasn't really sure what to do. So I was quite nervous about that. But like in the end, I actually found a job really quickly. But there was just this relief of like, oh God, now I don't have to do this anymore.
Yeah, I
So
don't
it
have
was,
to. The
I don't,
wording's really important here, and we know you pull this out probably with your clients as well. It's like when you're in that space, when you feel stuck, and I know I was the same. I felt like I had to continue, and all
yeah.
of a sudden you recognise I don't have to anymore. But I mean, what you did is courageous, because just walking away, and our paths are so similar in this respect. We walked away without necessarily knowing where we were going. And what always strikes me about that space is how it feels so uncomfortable to take that step, not knowing what comes next. And everyone else sees it as courageous. And it's so funny that, what feels always uncomfortable to us, it's like vulnerability. We feel very vulnerable, is courage in disguise. We just can't see it as the person going through it until a lot later. So how was that for you? Because it is courageous to do what you did.
Thank you for saying that. Do you know what? People keep saying this to me a lot recently about, oh, you're so brave to do what you did.
Yeah.
You're so brave to have moved to China. You're so brave to have just like quit. You're so brave to have started your business. And it's so interesting because I'm an engineer as you, so I don't know if you can kind of relate, but for me, I'm very logical. I'm a super logical person. And so for me, I was seeing things as logical decisions. So for me, I felt like, okay, I'm really not well and this is not serving me. Therefore, I should leave. So I was like, this is the logical step for me. And then when I got to like last year and I kind of realized it's not serving me anymore to continue to work in this industry, I should start my own business. So for me, it wasn't, I don't see it as courageous. Like I look back at it, I'm sure I'm going to look back on it and say like, wow, that was crazy. But at the moment, when I'm in the moment, I felt like this was the logical thing to do.
Yeah.
It's interesting talking about vulnerability. I feel more vulnerable now, having having made the decision to start my business. Like I feel more vulnerable now than probably ever before. And this last year, it's been a massive, massive journey of vulnerability and trying to unlock that. Because I've been making like conscious changes. I've been moving away from being a workaholic. I'm basically putting my story out into the world to allow others to know that they're not alone and to sort of see like what resonates. So that's where I'm vulnerable now. And coaching is, when you're a coach and mentor, I mean, I can put the work in and I will always put the work in, but you need someone else to put their hand up and be vulnerable with you. So it requires like a collaboration. So I'm vulnerable, waiting for other people to be vulnerable and put their hands up. So it's uncomfortable at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm hearing from you is this journey, and you're on this journey, and the journey can feel uncomfortable. And there are different things where we get, this vulnerability comes up, I guess, more often. But none of us are immune. And you and I are both in a space now where I know we speak courageously. We talk about things. We're not scared to talk about what's happened to us because we know it's going to help somebody. But could you always say what you thought when you were in corporate? Or were there times when you kind of held back? Because I know I held back a lot because I thought I was scared of like saying something silly. I was scared of, being rejected, not from a point of view of, from the company, but not accepted for my thinking, because I knew I didn't fit in because I was different, which made me hold back. And obviously a part of this is culture, part of this was just my own kind of internal workings. But how did that play out for you?
Yeah, it's kind of similar, to be honest. I think it took me a long time to speak courageously in meetings and to kind of like voice what was really going on. And I think that there's two different sides to it. Like one of it was I felt like what I really needed was support. So I was able to speak up in meetings when when I had already built relationships with people. So I'd kind of and I've heard this about other women as well, is that it's building relationships is something that like comes so naturally to women, okay, and men, but like it's something I did as well. And I was able to speak up courageously when I knew that there was people that would have my back, and then they would be like the first follower as well. Like I would say, so I remember being in a meeting, and I was in a factory in China, for example, and we were around this sort of prototype, first off prototype, and something had kind of gone wrong with it, and basically someone was telling me like this is what's happened with the prototype, and like she said, this is what's happened. All these other people have told me this is what's happened. And I sort of listened to her and I thought, are you sure? Are you sure? And the second that I had sort of put like I challenged it, someone else had said, yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
So I think that it's really important to nurture and I knew all of them very well. I knew all of them very well and like I trusted all of them. But I think that you have to create, or you have to put the work in to create that level of trust and to create that level of support and understanding from others. I do also think as well that I think especially like being a background in design, it can be really difficult to put your hand up and have like a differing opinion. And there's like a lot to unpack there because like like women need to have more of a say in design and in development because of the design gap which is happening. Whereas like basically if you're developing products only by men, then you're not going to get women's voice. But basically, to speak courageously as well, you have to be able to accept that you might be challenged and you might be wrong.
Yeah.
And you have to be open to be challenged. And that's like that is the background of innovation, definitely. And I think that, I've had to, and I'm a recovering perfectionist. I'll put my hand up for that as well. But basically you have to be able to be challenged and have that and have that strength. And it gets better over time, but for such a long time, I wasn't open to being challenged. I wasn't open to being proven wrong. So I didn't say anything. But once you have that level of support and comfort, then it can get easier.
Yeah, totally. So designing relationships and designing the space so that it's okay to challenge and to be challenged, this kind of curiosity. And I certainly sense what you're saying is a lot of companies, they think they have an environment where people will speak up. And unfortunately, this is the problem. You just don't see it when someone doesn't. So if you're not encouraging, not giving people permission, if you're not designing relationships where you can trust that you're not going to be kind of alienated, or you're not in a fear mode where you're worried about what the outcome of it will be, then you can ask the questions, then you can challenge, then you can be curious. But again, it's tying back to this vulnerability, isn't it? That there's a certain level of vulnerability we'll each accept at in different situations, and it can be very difficult to kind of manage this as you go through your career. But you often see this changing, and what I often see is kind of at a later point in time, people kind of open up again because they realize almost like, well, what's the worst that's going to happen? And at that point, then you're much more open to being challenged potentially. But it's something that needs a lot of work, I believe, in corporate. If we really want to be innovative, we want to create solutions for tomorrow, because all the problems around us, we will create solutions to. Someone will take tech, they will design something that is a solution to all of these problems. And it's the people that will do this. And so, creating those inclusive environments to me is really the important thing about what I do in terms of helping people speak up courageously, but also helping leaders and teams understand how to create these environments. Because, as we've proven, you can go through a pretty good career and still not feel like you can contribute everything that you potentially could. So there's still a massive gap in terms of what the potential is. So what is it you would say now, from where you sit today, that you're most proud of achieving during your career?
In my career, I'm genuinely really proud of where I got to. I'm genuinely really proud of that because, and this is like, I think there's so many women that probably feel the same in tech. I never even dreamed that I would get to head of department and director level. I just didn't ever think it was possible. So like my ambition originally was to work in a design or have my own design consultancy. But after I worked for design consultancies for a while, I realized that's not what I wanted. And then after that, it was design manager. I wanted to be a design manager. And this is something that I was like, okay, it's something that I know. And then I inadvertently got to head of department and director level. I got there. That's what happened. And I'm so proud of myself of getting there. In the end, I do think I was good at my job. I do think though that the values of the companies that I was working for was not aligned with where I was. So I'm also proud of walking away when that didn't align up. Like when I knew that it was like really against how I really, really felt. So I'm proud of getting to where I was, but I'm also proud of walking away.
Yeah, cool.
That.
Just sticking on the point, like where you got to, what was it you think that helped you succeed in the male-dominated industries that you worked in?
I prided myself on being someone that delivered. So when someone gave me something, I would say, all right, and I would get it done. And I would have the conversations and I would do the work and I put the work in. And so I built up a reputation for myself as someone who got stuff done, basically. And, in the kind of global level, I would really work my socks off for that. But in terms of how I got to where I did, a lot of it came from others believing in me more than I believed in myself.
Right.
And I know that, and I've been talking to women in design and STEM, and I hear that probably the most than anything. It's like I didn't believe in myself, I wasn't confident, I didn't think I could do it, and I did it as well. I did exactly the same thing. And so I was really, really fortunate to have worked for leaders that saw something in me and pushed me out, and were strong enough to push me outside of my comfort zone to get there, basically. So I acknowledge I put the work in myself, but I did have other people to help open doors for me, basically, and then push me up, basically.
So it's interesting, isn't it? Actually, what I'm hearing from you is what made you different was what actually helped you succeed. Because, yes, we stand out because we're women. And, there's no two ways about it. Some people see this as an advantage. It is also a disadvantage because you get exposed a lot quicker. But at the same time, there's something innate about who you were that somebody else saw and was nurturing to give you that kind of confidence. So in terms of confidence, when you look back, what is the advice you would give your 10-year-old self?
I would say you don't have to be good at everything.
Yeah, say more.
Yeah, you don't have to be good at everything. I think that I have I've definitely struggled a lot with trying new things or having the confidence to try new things because I was a perfectionist, and I have been like that since I was a little girl. So I think that what I would say is like it's okay, it's okay not to be good at everything, and it's okay to just try it, because I think that I've held back on a lot of things for a lot of my life because I was too scared to really try. And I think that as well that what would give me more confidence, what would have given a 10-year-old self more confidence, is you deserve to be happy.
Hmm.
You deserve to be happy. I think that there's been a lot of things that has been I haven't felt confident about what I really no, sorry, I haven't felt confident to speak up about what I really wanted or what I
Yeah.
really needed, because I felt that there's this external pressure, like from society, from like societal norms and ticking boxes and all that sort of stuff, that I think that being happy first, or knowing that I deserve to be happy first, probably could have changed the course of my life a bit differently a bit earlier, I think.
Hmm. Yeah, sure. And like like it is a very much an inbuilt, well, I have to prove myself, this proving, and there's obviously all the stats that show, Trust Radius report, the last one, that showed 79% of women feel that they have to work harder and keep proving themselves in tech, to keep up with what their other colleagues are doing. And that is phenomenal, because actually it plays to what you were saying a minute ago, is I delivered. I was that person that got things done, and I was really similar in business. I was given stuff to get done. I was, trusted to get things done, which is on one side's great, but on the other side, this is eventually what can drain us, because often, women, and I see this all over, we're taking on more and more and more and more, to a point
Hmm.
where actually we can't even focus on the things we do want to do, because we've just got so much on our plates, because we struggle to say no, because we're worried we're going to get, um, that's going to look bad on us. So yeah, I'm with you on this kind of happiness. But I think the other thing that I keep on coming across when I think back to what would have helped me at that kind of age, was this whole thing is, play to your strengths. Do what
Mm.
you're innately good at. It doesn't have to be hard all of the time. So this allowing ourselves, like almost like you were saying, we don't, not to be good at things, to recognize actually we bring value in an area, and go focus on that. Because I still feel that corporates, a lot of them, especially with kind of yearly reviews and everything else, there's so much focus on what people don't do right, rather
Yeah,
than trying to help them develop what they're really good at in ways that can actually fill you with energy and encourage you to grow. And
yeah,
so that's still a kind of a bit of a balance, which I don't know, what's your thinking?
yeah. I mean, I think that for a long time I was focused on what I did badly and what I needed to improve on. And I think, and I spoke to someone recently that was going through the same. And I think that I don't. I think women are particularly prone to this as well. That they're just like they're not focusing on what they've achieved. They're not focusing about how they're smashing it. Basically, they're saying like, "Oh God, I've still got to do this. I've got to do that. That wasn't good enough. That could have been better." But I think there needs to be a lot more reflection, especially, and I think that leaders and managers could really encourage people, especially like the women, to really sit and acknowledge it, or like basically there needs to be like a culture of saying thank you, or saying like you did so well in that place. It's something that when I was a leader, I would have like regular one-to-ones with my team, and I would start at the beginning of the conversation and I would say, you did so well in that meeting. You're absolutely all over it. You're doing so great. And I really think that it's leaders are there for people first, and there should be this boost rather than like waiting every year, every 6 months, or when your review is. You shouldn't be like, I was so scared a lot of the time, thinking, oh God, I've got my appraisal coming up, oh God. And then in the end it was fine because I hadn't had that communication. So I think there needs to be a bit of self-acknowledgement, but I think there is, like, leaders need to be better at communicating how people are doing well.
Yeah, I mean, communication is I guess, the hard stop of most of the problems that we have are interpersonal kind of relationship problems. It's about relationships, about communication, it's about understanding one another, because the most important human desire is to understand and be understood. And yet it's the one thing we don't spend an awful lot of time on. We don't prioritize in the right way. And you see the difference when you see leaders who do prioritize it, who do lean in and encourage their teams and speak to their teams in a way that actually empowers them. So yeah, that's something that's, I think we could talk about that for another half an hour just on its own.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I don't believe in leading by fear. I really don't believe in that, and I still see that even in 2022. I still see that, and I really hope that it's a culture that starts to die out. But you know, I'm a leader. I should be feared. It's not the way
Yeah,
anymore.
this old hierarchy paradigm, and
No, I know.
it's super important to me, because I think both you and I agree on this in terms of, well, you can't innovate, you can't be really creative if you are leading through fear, because people won't say what they're thinking, they won't contribute, they won't ask questions, they won't be curious, they won't, actually, they won't bring the value that they could bring in a space where they can just be open, where they can just be themselves, where they don't feel they need to put a mask on, because that's where I believe people thrive. And this is, talking about Simon Sinek's humanizing the working world, and to me it's true. That's how we're going to make a real change. It's not through technology. I think we've got all the technology around us we couldn't create, and we've got the ability to create, but now it's about really bringing the humans back in, putting the focus back on the employees and the customers, and actually, user experience and other things to actually really enable sustainability at all levels within the working world.
Yeah, I'm such a big fan of Simon Sinek. I think he's awesome. He's doing some really great stuff. And the quote that I always love is, "If you don't understand people, you don't understand business." And that's something that I keep shouting this. I keep shouting this thing when I go onto like message boards and things, and I hear about like managers that are just not caring about the people. It really irks me, and I'm totally with you. I really hope that we start to properly focus on the people where it really matters.
Cool. Well, thank you, Tracy. It's been fun. How can people reach out to you if they want to connect with you, if they've been inspired to get to know you a bit better?
Yeah, so I hang out most on LinkedIn. So the after the kind of like / it's Tracy Christina Sharp. So you can find most of my posts there. I'm also on Instagram, and that's at sharpminds_coach. Or you can get in touch with me at tracy@sharpminds.coach by email. So there's lots of different options, but yeah, most likely to find me, and I post most regularly on LinkedIn.
Cool. So maybe you could just go on and put in the comments, put your contact details in case people want to.
100%, no problem. Thank you very much for having me. This was a wonderful chat.
Yeah, thank you. I always enjoy our conversations. I think the first time we met, we recognized we had an awful lot in common, and everything about what you've said resonated with me, and I'm sure it's helped some people just take that first step to see something different. And that's always what this is about, to try and help others. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much.
Take care of yourself. Bye.
Bye. Ciao.